They say Insanity is doing the same thing over and over. I say it's playing Resident Evil 4 Remake with only chainsaw enemies and calling it a fun challenge. Because seriously, there are some rooms that I had to do over and over and over. Come on! Hello and welcome everyone. In this video, I used the randomizer mod to replace every enemy in the game with a Chainsaw Maniac. Now this challenge is already bad enough because every single enemy can kill it with one hit. But that's not even the worst part. The truly terrifying thing is that enemies can go out of bounds, vanish into the void, teleport to you. I was just gonna teleport back to me. And sometimes they just show up in places that normally have no enemies at all. So with all of that in mind, can you beat Resident Evil 4 Remake if every enemy is a chainsaw? Or more importantly, can I keep my sanity throughout this challenge?
Far could he have gone?
Huh? What was in here? Was there a crow in here or what? And he's not dead. God damn it. Do all the enemies have like chainsaw health? God damn it. I'm good. Oh. What the heck? What enemy is that? Why is it in the wall? Holy shit. Holy shit, it's 3. What? What? What the hell? Holy shit. Oh god, oh god. Really? This trap? So, heading into the village, I actually had a plan. And that plan was to gather all my courage, man up, and run around like a little girl until the church bell rang. I mean, come on, you don't seriously think I can take a horde of chainsaw-wielding lunatics with just a pistol and a knife. But don't worry, the game doesn't just let me sprint past everything, even though I really wanted to. Moving on to the farm, I wanted to shoot the medallions in here to get the treasure, but apparently the game considers the cows to be enemies for some reason, because I could swear normally there isn't as many enemies in here. But anyways, after dying a few times, I finally managed to squeeze through, but I'll keep a death/reset counter in here, just to remind myself how mentally stable I was while doing this. And if that counter reaches 69, you will like this video. Deal? In here, I just run past all the enemies until we meet the merchants. And I do have a plan on what to buy and what to upgrade. And the priority was for the sniper rifle because it deals a lot of damage, especially on weak spots. So it's perfect for killing chainsaws. Now we head to the canyon and the plan is just to run past everyone, get the key and whatever loot I can, and just run out. All while trying to keep the death counter under control. Well, looks like we're gonna hit those 69 deaths way sooner than expected. Now this was the strategy for most of the next rooms. I was able to pass through without dying all that much, as long as I don't do something stupid or get unexpected surprises. What the? More surprising was that the Lago wasn't a chainsaw but is now an orca. And that's because chainsaws can't swim. And an orca because why not? So after killing him without dying, we get to wander around the lake and explore it for a bit. Wait. He's a normal guy. Why? Oh crap. So after I collected a lot of treasures and got some charms in the shooting range, I sold those treasures along with most heals I had, especially the red, yellow, green herb mixes. Because I got the charm that doubles the price of heals, and those weren't really useful because everyone can one-shot me, so they're basically useless. And I got the bow thrower from the merchants because it can throw mines that knock down enemies, and that's really helpful. I also upgraded it a bit, along with the pistol and the rifle, so now I was actually feeling kinda strong. So after that, we deal with El Gigante, rescue Ashley, and immediately traumatize her again by getting split in half right in front of her. You're welcome, Ashley. Luckily, the chainsaw enemies only target me, so Ashley wasn't that much of a burden. And moving on to the village, I tried to complete the merchant request to kill the dog in here, but of course the dog is now a chainsaw, and I have no idea which one it is. And there's no way I can kill all of them, so I just accepted defeat, and then we head on to the worst room I've ever faced in any challenge. Cabin. Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack in here. Normally you have to kill a few enemies, and they will drop a few window borders which you can use to trigger the second part. Then you have to kill 5 or 6 enemies to spawn the big guy, and when you kill him, that's the end. Now for this challenge, throw all of that completely out the window because none of that applies in here. You see, chainsaw enemies don't drop window borders at all. So from the start, my only option was to just survive. But the room fills up way too fast. And even when I somehow made it to the second phase by some miracle, things got even worse, and the room would get flooded even faster, and death was basically inevitable.
Oh my god, this is a freaking mess. Oh, dear god.
And after spending way too much time in here, I learned that these chainsaws are not the smartest. And I found out that most of them come through this window. And if I use the wood plank you get on this window, only a few enemies would come in. And after I deal with them, I just have to sit around patiently waiting for the second part. Sometimes more enemies would sneak in before it triggered, which was super annoying, but at least now I had a path forward. Now I got enemies flooding in from 2 ladders upstairs and more pouring through the windows downstairs. They even come through the barricaded window, which was really frustrating. This whole place turned into a blender in seconds. God damn it, I was on the ladder, man. And I threw every grenade and mine and flash I had just to buy some time. Because even if I had infinite rocket launcher in here, it wouldn't really matter because they just climb right back in. And even if I had infinite knives to parry their attacks, they have this unparryable attack that turns you into meat stew. And the worst part is, every attempt meant that I had to redo the entire thing again. Board a window, kill all of the enemies at the start, and then wait for 6 full minutes for phase 2, only to die seconds in. It was torture, and I made 0 progress. So I gave up. I had no solution in mind. I actually stopped making this video and went back to finish an old project. And after a few weeks, I decided to go back and give it a try. And on my 3rd attempt, nothing short of a miracle happened. Remember how I said chainsaw enemies are dumb? They don't flank, they don't surround, they just beeline straight towards you like they got GPS on their teeth. And I noticed that the way they enter the room is not always the same. Sometimes more come from upstairs, sometimes from downstairs, sometimes it's complete chaos, and other times it's more manageable. And on this attempt, the stars aligned perfectly. It starts like it always does. I go in, block the key window, clear the room, and wait. Before phase 2 kicks off, one enemy steps through the fireplace. So I drop some mines to slow her down, then immediately run upstairs and prep to kick the ladder. Now it's all about staying calm, moving between both ladders and stopping them from getting in, while dealing with the enemies that got in from downstairs. So I killed these 2 enemies and went back up to keep kicking ladders, and luckily, the enemies kept trying to get in through the ladders and no one came from the windows downstairs. I was in disbelief, but I needed to focus, so I just kept moving back and forth between the ladders while trying not to panic. And that was it.
Oh, thank God. My prayers have been answered, man. Holy shit.
After 9 hours and over 100 deaths just on cabin alone, it was finally over. And yeah, this is hands down the worst room I've ever faced in any challenge. The only ones that come close are Delago or Verdugo in double the speed challenge. So yeah, a like on this video would be very much appreciated. We did pass 69 deaths in cabin after all. Now I just ran past everyone in here. Then I had to face the Bella sisters, or the Bella siblings, because one of them is a guy now. It certainly took a few deaths, but I just used the rifle to kill the guy who has the crank, then just ran to the door. Now this room was pretty easy to do, especially that I used 2 flashes to avoid any silly mistakes, and now I was going to face Mendez. I'm just afraid to get a random guy out of nowhere. Like that, exactly like that. Who the hell is this? What? Okay, then there's just a merchant. So I got the exclusive for the pistol before going in, and the fight shouldn't be that hard, because it's either a single chainsaw enemy, or maybe even 2 for his second phase, or it's still Mendez if bosses aren't affected by the mod. What I definitely wasn't ready for was both Mendez and chainsaw enemies at the same time. Okay, there is some chainsaw guys in here. Oh, God. Needless to say, I spent some time in this room, but I was finally able to kill the chainsaw ladies, then I can focus on Mendez. So I reached his second phase, and the fight was going so smoothly until... Whoa! What the hell? This is stupid, man. So after the second phase, I had to kill the lady while trying to avoid his attacks, which wasn't easy at all. But I did manage to do it, which made the rest of the fight pretty easy. Let's go, finally. Now we reached the castle, and this is where things start to get messy. And facing this guy, I could tell how helpful the pistol exclusive was, because now enemies stagger much easier, and if I upgrade my knife, that would be the best way to kill these chainsaws. Anyways, we reached this catapult room, and the plan was to get the cannon early and use it to kill everyone in here because there was a lot of them. And it worked flawlessly, for about 2 seconds. Then it went horribly wrong. Turns out this room is much harder than I thought. Imagine combining tight spaces with a whole lot of chainsaw enemies, and then throw in a bunch of catapults for seasoning, and boom! You've got yourself a perfect recipe for disaster. The only way I could do it is by going to the cannon to get everyone to follow me, and then jump down and circle back. This will give me some time to blow up some catapults, and it would get all the enemies lined up behind me, so hopefully I can shoot them with the cannon without worrying about someone coming from behind. But even after killing all the enemies who were following me, and a few more which took a lot of time, the music was still on, and I could still hear the chainsaws. So I went to check. What the hell, man? Come on! So after dying a few more times in here, I finally managed to do it again, and then headed to the next room. And I got the magnum and went to fight the enemies in here. And I think this is the most amount of enemies I had to kill in one room. Aside from cabin, of course. And a few deaths later, I did it. But it did cost me all of my sniper ammo. And now it was time for the Ganados fight. Before the fight, I swapped the first shotgun with the riot gun. Then I went in. And if I had to describe this fight in one word, it would be unfair. And that's not just because she can kill me instantly. She was constantly teleporting and vanishing into thin air, and even going in and out of walls. So yeah, this fight was stupid.
What's wrong with?
I swear the hardest parts on this challenge are these random stuff. Like this enemy in here, because usually this room is clear. But now you can never be so sure anymore, and you should never let your guard down.
Holy shit.
Now we reach everyone's favorite room, Water Hall. It took seconds for me to die in here, so yeah, this was gonna be a long ride. My first goal was to grab the wheel from downstairs, but the moment I saw how many enemies were down here, I knew that fighting wasn't gonna work.
No, hell no!
So I just tried running past everyone, but of course it didn't work. They swarmed me instantly and I died again and again. Eventually I changed my strategy. I went to this corner to pull them away from the stairs, then used the barrel to slow them down, then threw a flash grenade. This gave me just enough time to bring down the stairs, and I went back up and immediately died to this lady in here. And if you think that I'll learn from my mistake, you'd be wrong, because on the next attempt, I died the exact same way. But the third time is the charm though. I changed my path and I finally survived. I even went back and saved because I was feeling pretty good about the progress I made. There was only one problem. Yep. Now that I aggroed all of them, they were all waiting for me near this door, so there is no way for me to get to the crank. And even if I get there, there is no way I have enough time to use it without dying. So that leaves me with one option. Kill all of them somehow, which was much easier said than done, because there were dozens of them and I had limited ammo. So the best plan I could come up with is to go near the door to attract some of them, then deal with them one or two at a time. And the best way to kill them was to use whatever weapon I had to shoot them in the head and stagger them. Then kick and knife them to minimize ammo consumption. And I did have the money attaché case, so they would constantly give me 1500 pesetas, and I used that money to repair my knife each time it broke. And sometimes I get in the water hall again just to run across the room to get some ammo, because killing these many enemies took all of my ammo and resources. And the big surprise here was the ball thrower. I usually hate this thing. It's slow and weak and kind of ridiculous, but it turned out to be a lifesaver in here. The retrievable ammo meant that I could stagger enemies over and over, then go in for a kick and knife combo. Sure, sometimes I need a few extra shots to put them down, but honestly it was a total game changer. And the pistol exclusive also helped, since it made staggering them much easier. So I started grinding them down one after the other, and the more I kill, the more they come. At one point I could barely walk through the room without stepping over a pile of dead chainsaws. And after a ton of kills and a few deaths here and there, the room was finally clear. I don't think I've killed this many chainsaw enemies in my life, and hopefully I'll never have to again. No, look how many bodies. And most of them are unloaded, by the way. That's not all of the bodies. Now it was time for the second part, and I thought it wouldn't be so bad. I figured it would either give me chainsaws on the top floor, which wouldn't be a big deal since they ignore Ashley and I can just run in circles. Or maybe the fight wouldn't change at all. Right? Right? Wrong. Turns out there's a third scenario. Chainsaws and grabbers for Ashley. Because sure, this challenge wasn't already bad enough. Now I have to keep myself alive and keep Ashley from getting snatched by grabbers. At this point, the challenge didn't even feel fair anymore, but I still had to figure out a way to do it. And after about 20 deaths, I finally managed to pull it off, bringing my total deaths in Waterhall alone to 44. Once that nightmare was over, Ashley gets kidnapped and I go for the most dangerous trip of all time. Then it was time for the Red Zealot room. And this room was really hard because there was a lot of enemies in here and only one of them has a lantern I need to progress. But somehow, by pure luck or a small miracle, I managed to find and kill the lantern guy pretty quickly on my second attempt. And then we get introduced to what is supposed to be the Type 3 Plagas.
What the hell? Oh no!
I cannot believe that. And that was the biggest mistake of this whole run, because now I have to do the red Zelotron again, and that made me realize just how lucky I was the last time. At this point, if I haven't already done this room before, I'd say it's impossible. Because good luck just trying to reach the red Zelotron without dying. And trying to kill him in the middle of all these enemies was a death wish. And the worst thing is that he sometimes jumps down as soon as you enter the room. And this way he gets mixed with all the other chainsaws and there's no way to pick him out. I tried getting all the enemies to chase me throughout this room and use the barrels on them, but that wasn't enough to kill anyone. So I had to study the first attempt carefully and figure out how I did it the first time. And the best strategy was to try to shoot him with the sniper as soon as I walk in. Then I just try to go to his location without dying. And ideally, he would be standing here. But if he's not, that means he jumped down. And I had to slow down the enemies that were already following me, and he would show up among these enemies in the front. So I tried shooting them because he is already damaged and his HP must be pretty low. And since none of them died, I had to lead them through the barrels and see if anyone dies from the explosions. And after using all the barrels, I found his drop, finally beating this room. It only took me 37 deaths. Seriously, this death counter is getting way out of control. And this time I played it very safe on the Plagas enemies. I got them to follow me to this table and just circled around it and ran. Now we reached the castle towers, and I did die in here a couple of times, but I managed to do the skip on my third attempt. And then proceeded to die to the Gigante in here. And that was the second worst mistake of the challenge, because just like the last room, I got stuck in here. I either die at this first wave of enemies, or I mess up the skip, or I get sliced while climbing the ladder. Either way, I died 21 times in here just because of that stupid mistake.
That's cheating. Come on.
You know what, let's make another deal. If that counter reaches 420, you subscribe to the channel, deal? Anyways, when I finally made it through, I hopped on the cannon, blew away the Gigante, and then turned it on anyone else who was thinking of following me, because at this point I was done playing nice. Now we head to the maze, and it took a few attempts in here, but I just had to lower the flag in a specific order and avoid looting anything. And just hope that no one would catch up to me, and that was enough to proceed. So after that there's this gallery room, and luckily the enemies were too stupid to lower the bridges, but I was even more stupid, because I accidentally jumped down and got myself killed. So in the next attempt, I just took the goat head and used the grenade to clear my way out and left. As simple as that. And now it's time for nights. And the biggest change on this room, other than enemies being chainsaws of course, is that all of them spawn at the same time. And Ashley doesn't throw the lantern. So I think this is the most enemies I had to kill in one room, because on Waterhall, I only fight 1 or 2 at a time. So after a few deaths from major skill issues... Shit. I finally managed to get good and beat this room. Moving on to Ashley's part, it didn't change at all, so there's pretty much nothing to say in here. But after I finished it, I remembered that I didn't go backtracking with Ashley, and the last save I had was before Night's room. So I tried reloading the save and redoing the room, but it was taking way too long, so I just accepted the fact that I'm actually gonna miss a treasure. So I went backtracking without Ashley, and I got every treasure I could get and every box I missed, and of course I did die. A lot. But I did get a lot of money, and I used it to fully max out the sniper rifle and max out the knife without the exclusive. And I also put some upgrades on the shotgun's firepower. Things were looking pretty good. So I went to face the Golden Knight.
What? Is that a giant chainsaw? What the hell? Shit.
And he's dead. As you can see, the rifle is much more effective on enemies. It's certainly the best weapon for them, provided I have ammo, of course. And I also maxed out the firepower for the shotgun, and I used the exclusive ticket to make it even more powerful. Then we go for the Novi's room. And there isn't much to say in here, because I just ran past most enemies to open the next door and saved right after. And there were actually some Novi's here along with chainsaws. I'm not sure why the game forgot to chainsawify them. I guess they're not enemies, they're more like a decoration at this point. But anyways, the next room is where my upgraded weapons were really helpful. Because naturally the Ganados are chainsaws now, and I cannot tell which is which, so I had to kill everyone in this room. So I just kept running in circles, shooting whoever I can, and it surely took some time and ammo, but I was able to do it on my second attempt. Now this part was surprisingly scary. And after that we reach Verdugo. And this fight was pretty annoying because Verdugo doesn't change, and we get some extra chainsaws thrown in the mix for whatever reason. It wasn't the hardest boss, but like I said, it was pretty annoying. At this point I started breezing through the challenge. Sure, I take a few deaths here and there, but overall I wasn't doing so bad. On this room I just ran past everyone, and the next one is just double Gigante, with one more chainsaw tossed in there because why not? And the minecart section didn't change at all. And surprisingly also this part in the middle didn't change. It had normal enemies for some reason, but anyways, we finished the minecarts, then the Novice section just by running past most of them, and we get a little surprise in here.
What the hell? Why? What? That was weird.
Up to this point, I was always selling the mixed herbs, so my health was pretty small. And with chainsaws, that doesn't really make any difference, but now it does, especially with these enemies also taking some swings at me. So I bought the armor in here, and I also got the knife exclusive to be able to knife much faster, and after a few tries, I was able to beat him.
That was harder than I expected.
Then we head back up the castle, and I got the golden egg in here, and I did some backtracking. And this room had knights for some reason, but hey, I'm not complaining. I killed them, grabbed the treasure, and of course I died a few times in the process. Now we head to the clock tower, and the first surprise was waiting for me right here, because normally there is no enemies in here, but at this point I got used to it. And by used to it, I mean I was used to dying to it. Then the clock tower was much harder than I thought. I mean, of course it was gonna be hard, because tight spaces plus shitload of angry chainsaw guys equals hard. But I actually had a strategy, and that was to try to make it to the top floor while running past everyone in here. Then use the ball to kill them all. Well, after a lot of attempts just to get to the top floor, I found out that it doesn't kill them. It just clips through them. This made this room so much more difficult, because usually, I just have to hold them back a little in here, and the guy throwing the ball at me would kill all of his friends. But now I actually have to survive all the way up. I was screwed. I died over and over and over. Until I finally managed to reach the elevator. And for some strange reason, there were normal enemies in here, but honestly, I wasn't going to question it. I'll take whatever break I can get. And I did the elevator on my first try, and I got a few enemies in here which shouldn't be a problem. The smart thing to do is to wait for them to get off the weak platform and deal with them without rushing.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? No. No, man, no.
As painful as that was, I deserved it. I had to do all of that again, but luckily, I reached the elevator on my first attempt this time, and I was doing pretty well until... What the hell, man? A few more deaths later, I reached the elevator again, and I also died. I know it seems really weird how I reached this far in the game with all chainsaw enemies, but I can't beat this room with regular ones. But hear me out. I think it's because I didn't upgrade my health at all. Thankfully, I got it in the next attempt, and I didn't die in here this time. And just a side note, I died 31 times in here. Now we reached Salazar, and I had the golden egg ready for him because that takes away about 70% of his health. What I wasn't ready for is more freaking chainsaws in the arena with him. So after missing the golden egg throw a few times, I finally landed a shot. And then I shot him once with the sniper rifle, then used my knife on him. But that wasn't enough to kill him, and with him darting around like a fly you can't swat, and a few more chainsaws, I died pretty quickly. And then I realized the best way to do this fight is to try to finish him off as soon as possible, then deal with the chainsaws, because they just wouldn't let me fight in peace. And after a few attempts, I finally got a plan. I start with throwing the golden egg at him, then use a heavy grenade to damage him and knock down 2 chainsaws in here. Then I just unload on him with the sniper rifle, and that was it. Of course, then I would have to deal with the remaining chainsaws. And now before I could save, there were some chainsaw guys in here, and thank God I was able to sneak in a save mid-combat, because normally you can't do that. And I died just moments after that, but I was able to get through and head to the island.
Why? Who the hell are you?
I did the mirrors room, and I just ran past the 2 rooms after it. And right before I could save, I died to this guy in here.
Who the hell are you, brother?
A few deaths later, I finally reached this room again, and after that, there isn't much to say really, other than the regenerator room was pretty scary.
Oh my god, man!
And I killed all 4 enemies in here, and of course there were a few deaths here and there, but nothing was that hard. This other regenerator room was honestly pretty easy.
Nice. I'm so glad Ashley said that because I couldn't see shit.
But I did get memed in here.
What the heck? There was no one there, man.
This is why you can never relax in this challenge. Next up was the wrecking ball, and I just used 2 heavy grenades on the wall and 1 flash to slow down the enemies. And the wall broke down from the first hit, so I just ran to save. This way most enemies despawn, although one of them followed me in here, but he wasn't much of a threat. Then we reached Krauser, and right before the fight I maxed out the Killer 7's firepower and I got the exclusive unit ticket. And before I head down to the fight, I noticed some chainsaws just lurking around. Of course. Luckily, I was able to snipe them from here, and I fought Krauser with the knife in here to save ammo, and then moved on to the second phase. But before that, there was this chainsaw who was so determined to kill me, she forgot how to use the stairs, and I took her out with what I like to call environmental damage. Then the second part was almost the same as the first one, but this time I used my weapons a little more, and now we're down for the final showdown. And of course it came with a chainsaw sidekick. And she did kill me.
You piece of shit, no, man, come on!
On my next attempt though, I did everything the same, and I just blasted the chainsaw lady with a killer 7, then unloaded on Krauser and he died pretty fast. Just like that, the showdown was over.
That was quick.
Now it's chapter 15, and this part is usually pretty annoying, but I actually had a plan. First, I upgraded Krauser's knife because it deals more damage, then once Mike appears, I can just hang back and avoid enemies, and he'll kill them all. Admittedly, he took his time doing it because chainsaw enemies have a lot more HP, but he did take care of most of them, and I just helped a little. That was the case until I reached this turret, which I destroy using a heavy and a regular grenade. And now if I move any closer to the door, he'll blow it up, then leave. Yeah, thanks a lot, buddy. So I stayed in here for a while so I can kill most enemies first. And after he blows up the door, I wait in here to attract most of the enemies out of the room, then I'll get in, and I just have to kill the turret enemies and try to survive the crowd behind me. And it did take some time and a few deaths, but I was able to kill most enemies and switch the lever and move on. Now this room normally has regenerators in bags, and they usually stay put until you attack them, but the chainsaw enemies were a little too impatient.
Oh, god dang it. Oh my god, man. You never get used to this shit.
And then we reached the final war room. I did die a few times in here until I decided I've had enough and I just ran and gunned past everyone. And that actually worked. So I just used this turret to make sure I wasn't followed, and now we get to take Ashley and remove the parasites. After that I had to sneak past these enemies that spawned in here for no apparent reason, then push through a few more enemies until we finally reached Sadler. And after spending more than 30 hours on this challenge, I didn't want to waste any more time fighting him. So I just sold all the treasures I had along with the bolt thrower, and I got the rocket launcher and blasted him off. But it's not quite over yet. The area afterwards, where normally enemies are dying, now it's filled with freaking chainsaws instead. Somehow I made it to the jet ski alive, although Ashley got hit in the end, but she just teleported to the jet ski. And then I died in here like a freaking moron. Seriously man, I die in here way too many times. And I had to do this part again and it wasn't easy. I died a couple more times before I finally got it. And that brings my total deaths to 418. And honestly, I really didn't like this number, so I went back through the footage to see if I have any more deaths I didn't count. And luckily, I did find 2 more, so that brings the total deaths to 420. Nice. Now you have to subscribe, it's the law. And if you enjoyed this video, you can check out my last challenge where I try to beat the entire game without random drops. Click here to watch that.